Mr. Ryan Tosca. He's going to be a very busy man tonight. Phil, I'm going to call the roll. This is a public meeting, although it is on Zoom to the government's order. So not being able to see everybody, I will call the roll to make sure that we have a quorum. I will ask again for Mr. Baldoff. No. Dr. Childs?
Aye.
Mr. Beckerman?
Aye.
Mr. Connors?
Yeah.
Ms. Frigiletti?
Here.
No, we have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the review and approval of the third FY21 supplemental budget proposal. This is something that has been talked about with regard to some of the changes in the software use and equipment needed to keep the county running efficiently. I know the Abrahams Group has spoken specifically about this and how this could, if it's used as it's supposed to, really help the county a great deal. So I would ask Interim Director or Acting Director Labadini if she could kindly give us a little walkthrough on this as to why we are doing it, as well as where the money is being transferred from and to.
In accordance with the advisory board and the commissioner's decision to perform the operational analysis and financial control overview, we respectfully request $4,453 be available, from available funds in order to take the first step in revising our financial accounting software and our financial procedures. These funds are needed to approve the current use of our Infinite Vision system with enhanced training and for an upgrade to the Infinite Visions portal. We're requesting to transfer this from the FY21 operating budget supplemental appropriation, which will impact our carryover. We're able to do this by transferring $10,000 from the treasurer's permanent salary line and $30,453 from the maintenance snow removal line. Applying $31,823 into the information technology professional and technical line and $8,630 into the information technical education of employee line. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Labadini. Do the members have questions? I think this is something that we haven't discussed in detail ourselves, but I know the commissioners have discussed it and the Abrahams Group has discussed it, but as always, we want to entertain questions before we make any recommendations to the full board. Mr. Beckerman?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Dr. Childs?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Connors?
No questions. And I was just catching on Mr. Baldoff this year.
$40,000 for information technology. It's getting approved.
I think there's a person on who's doing some play-by-play for us, and if they could just mute, please, that would be great. So, Mr. Baldoff, you are present, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you hear the presentation?
I did the last part of it. I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Connors, do you have questions?
No, I have no questions. I'm all set.
Ms. Frigiletti, do you have any questions?
I do not, thanks.
Is there a motion to make a recommendation to the full advisory board that this supplemental budget appropriation be approved?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Beckerman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Connors. Again, this is a public meeting, although it's electronic, and I would like to call the roll to ensure that everyone's voice is heard. I'll call the roll starting with Mr. Beckerman.
Aye.
Dr. Childs.
Aye.
Mr. Connors.
Aye.
Ms. Frigiletti.
Aye.
And Mr. Baldoff.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the minutes of the April 7th meeting last Wednesday. I don't know if people have had an opportunity to review them. If you have questions, happy to entertain them now. If not, would love to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Beckerman, is there a second?
Second.
I didn't catch that. The voice failed me. Was it Ms. Frigiletti or Dr. Childs?
Was me.
Oh, okay. Well, you do talk a lot, Beth, just saying.
I know, sorry about that.
I go into a motion having been made and seconded. I will call the roll. Mr. Baldoff.
Aye.
Mr. Beckerman.
Aye.
Dr. Childs,
Aye.
Mr. Connors,
Aye.
Ms. Frigiletti.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any other topics that should come before the board now that weren't anticipated at the time this agenda was sent out?
Mr. Reardon,
Yes, Mr. Connors.
could we just confirm future dates for the Finance Committee?
Absolutely. So let's get the calendar out here. So at present, obviously tonight with the hearing, and I don't know, Paul, to be honest, I think we may want to see what happens at the meeting tonight, because we may need more than what we originally anticipated. What are your feelings?
Oh, I agree, but we did have one date set aside.
Mm-hmm.
May 12th for the Finance Committee.
Right.
We may need additional, I agree with you, could be.
Okay.
But we had May 12th for the Finance Committee and the 19th for the budget presentation.
Mm-hmm. Do you want, I would think that we'd want to keep that. Yep. And add some. I don't know what the other members think. I mean, hopefully you don't have to add some, but there is that possibility.
So we're locked in on these two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree we should lock down these two, but I think we're going to have to add something, I bet, after tonight.
Okay.
And it'd be better to add it earlier rather than at the end, because then we get too scrunched up against the May vote.
I agree. Why don't we do this, Director Labadini and Assistant Director Buckley, we may be reaching out to ask your assistance in scheduling additional meetings, but I think it is the will of the group to maintain and lock in the May 12th meeting. And then the May 19th meeting would be the actual vote on the budget. I think we should probably have a meeting right prior to the meeting, just in case. I don't know if the members feel that that would be a good idea, just in case.
Could we do this then? Could we, just in anticipation, we don't have to, if we don't feel it's necessary, we can eliminate it right away.
Okay.
But people have their calendars ready, do May 5th, 12th, and 19th.
So that would be 3 weeks from today, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that would work. I don't know how the other members feel, because it will take some time to, if there are any changes to the budget, for the commissioners to be able to do that and then bring it back to us. So that's probably the best way to do it.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
That works.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm just curious, just help me out. Are you talking about meeting as a board, but also with the commissioners, or just meeting on your own? Are these meetings with the commissioners or on your own?
It's going to depend, I would think, Commissioner. Our whole intent in having the meetings with the commissioners has been to see the information at the same time, rather than kind of duplicate efforts like we did last year, which was frustrating for everybody. So I think we'd have to coordinate with Chair Shea as to if that's going to work, or if it works for our interests or yours, or both, or not. But,
all right, just because I know the 12th, we've already got our own meeting, an Aggie school meeting, and we're also going to be bringing in, hopefully, the finalists for the new county director, either the 5th or the 12th. So maybe we should coordinate that. That's all. I'm just saying that we should be coordination, but
absolutely. So, yeah, the Finance Committee, and certainly I would say Chair Connors from the full advisory board would be in touch with Chair Shea and with Ms. Labadini and Mr. Buckley with regard to how that's going to work out. But I understand the workload, Dick, and we don't want to make extra work for anybody if we can help it. So one way or the other, we'll figure it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other business to come before the Finance Committee? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Beckerman. Is there a second?
Second.
I will call the roll with the motion having been moved and seconded. Mr. Baldoff.
Aye.
Mr. Beckerman.
Aye.
Dr. Childs.
Aye.
Mr. Connors.
Aye.
And Ms. Frigiletti.
Aye.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. See you in 2 minutes.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, guys. Peace.
Nobody left their seats? It now being 6:30, as the chairman of the County Advisory Board, Paul Cornish, I am calling the meeting of Wednesday, April 14 to order. I would welcome everybody on. I would welcome at this time well, first of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Beckerman from Avon on being re-elected to the Board of Selectmen in this week's election, representing the town of Randolph, town of Avon. Well, he came from Randolph.
Yeah, yes, I did. Thank you, Chairman Connors.
Welcome. And we have a new member representing the town of Canton, replacing, nobody's going to be able to replace him, but filling in for Dick Stady. Mr. John Conley is the new member and will be introduced by Mr. Stady at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly an honor and a privilege to introduce to the board tonight a longtime member of the Select Board in Canton. I think he's trying to set the record. It's going to be a close call. Mr. John Conley brings to the board a wealth of experience and institutional knowledge. Just a little known fact. People in Canton know this, but John actually took my spot when I stepped away to finish my law school at Suffolk and get my degree. So Johnny was on the school board, ran, and he's been on there ever since. So we're kind of tied at the hip, if you will. I will warn all of you, though, that John likes to have fun. Luckily, you have right now the protection of COVID. But when we get back to having live meetings, I would say be careful, watch your pockets, because he's been known to pull a few tricks, and you'll find things in there, and all of a sudden things will be missing as well. But he's a great guy. He's going to add an awful lot to the board, and it's great to be working with him again in this capacity. So welcome, Mr. John Conley, longtime Select Board member. John, take it away. Thank you.
Mr. Conley, at this time, would you please, I see you have the flag behind you, lead us in the pledge to the flag, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioner Stady, and thank you, Chairman Connors. And my says BOS number 2, so I don't know how to change it, but I'll be happy to lead them. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
100%. You're absolutely right. Thank you once again for joining us, and please let us know how tonight goes.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks a lot. You just mentioned Governor.
Well done. There you go.
Okay, we're going to do the roll call at this time, and I would ask everybody to please speak up and state your name and the town you represent, and be very clear, please.
I can probably do it from here, Paul.
Okay.
Okay. Avon.
Eric Beckerman, I'm here.
Bellingham. Braintree.
Charles Ryan here.
Brookline. Elizabeth Childs here. Canton.
John Conley, present. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cohasset. Dedham.
Tom Polito here.
Dover. Foxborough. Franklin.
Peter Padula here.
Holbrook. Medfield.
I'll go get him.
Here.
Medway. Millis. Milton.
Joe Reardon here.
Needham.
Ron Furman here.
Norfolk.
Patricia St. Aubin, present.
Norwood. Plainville.
Carl Baldoff here.
Quincy.
Chuck Phelan here.
Randolph.
Paul Connors here.
Sharon. Stoughton. Walpole.
Robert Damisch present.
Wellesley.
Amy Frigiletti here.
Westwood. Weymouth. Rentham. Did I miss anybody? Bill, were you keeping track? Do we have a quorum?
Yeah. Yes, I was. We have a quorum at 69.64.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are set.
Thank you, Dr. Giles.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Ed Little was muted. I don't know if he was heard that he's here.
Oh.
Thank you. I thought there was somebody I had missed. Okay. Sharon.
Then we have 70. Excuse me. We have a 72.05 then quorum.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Okay. At this time, I would like to have a motion to accept the minutes of the December 9th meeting.
So moved by Braintree.
Second by Sharon. Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous vote.
I abstain, Mr. Chairman. I abstain. I wasn't present. John Connolly.
Okay.
I was not present. Thank you.
The Abrams Group to report on the FY22 capital improvement report and progress update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, commissioners. Hello, advisory board members. Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Mark Abrahams. I'm the lead consultant on the best practices, financial management, and operational analysis. Here with me tonight is Matt Abrahams. We have presented the capital plan for fiscal 22 on several occasions. Tonight, we're going to brief you as the advisory board and then give you a very quick update as to the scope and status of our project. And I understand we have to be complete by 7 p.m. for your hearing.
Correct.
All right, so I'll turn this over to Matt.
Good evening, everyone.
If you want a legitimate name, I just put you in a Zoom user.
Yeah. And then
I have your video off.
And mute.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to share a file to start the presentation.
Sure.
I am not able to do that though, disabled.
One moment. Well, now a co-host, Matt.
Okay, thank you. A nice quick fix. Okay, everyone should be able to see a file on the screen at this point. This is an Excel spreadsheet that we have used to compile the FY22 capital plan for Norfolk County. I believe that the advisory board, as part of the packet for tonight's meeting, received a copy of this in PDF format. This is the Excel version of that produced that PDF format. Since that PDF format has been compiled and issued, we have added one tab to this file, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, just to make you aware, though, that that is not in your packet. But it was in response to a request that came from Dr. Childs since that PDF file was created. So just to speak real quick about the process that we used to get to this point, the county administration, when we first started the project, identified 8 departments that they wanted us to work with on capital planning. We contacted and set up meetings with all 8 of those departments and had discussion, or in some cases just email exchanges, but usually a in-depth discussion trying to identify all of the capital needs of each of the departments. So it was an open forum for the departments and their staff to speak about any capital needs that they thought that they would seek over the next 10 years, possibly seek over the next 10 years. We wanted to be all inclusive and get as detailed as possible on that. So from that, we put together a documented notes about each of the meetings, and also a first pass at a capital plan, similar to a format that you're seeing here in front of you. For each of the departments, we shared the capital plans with each with the staff that we had met with, just to confirm that everything was accurate, and we were able to get sign-offs on those plans. So we went ahead and compiled all of the data that we had collected for capital planning from all the departments into one county-wide, very large Excel file that we're considering to be the 10-year capital plan for the county to use for capital planning going forward from this point. So with our help, we need to do a little bit more work to get into the proper state.
Put this light on, please.
But with our help, the county will be able to use that going forward into the future. So then, to take it one step further, we wanted to focus just on FY22. What might funding for capital in FY22 look like? We had meetings with county administration to try and put together this plan. And from those meetings, we came up with what you're looking at here. So we have for you tonight 2 summary tabs to review and 2 details tabs to review. The first details tab, which is the one we're looking at currently, is what we're calling details FY22 items funded, which means that county administration wanted to include the funding of these items in the FY22 capital plan and was able to identify a funding source for those items or projects. I'm saying items, but it could be a capital project as well. And then we have a tab that lists things that we had classified as FY22, but at this time is not part of the plan or not being funded. So I'm going to quickly go downward with what we have here. There are many rows. In total, there are 32 items in this plan. And they are grouped by department. They're not grouped in any priority or anything like that, not based on dollars or anything. It's simply based on department going downward. So you'll see in the left-hand column, there's a that's the department column. We had it classified by department. The second column is, if we need to be a little bit more specific with a location or a building, we put that in the second column. Third column is the item or the project. The fourth column is the estimated cost of the item or the project. And the fifth column, as you see here, is the funding source, which was provided by county administration through the meetings that we had with them. So going downward, I'll just scroll really quickly, but you can see there's a lot here. There's a lot for the facilities maintenance department. You can see the funding source of prior year unappropriated balance in most cases. For this row here, for golf course grounds improvements, we had as an option the operating budget for each of the departments, knowing that the typical practice of the county is to fund certain capital out of the operating budget until that is fully transitioned away from. We wanted to include that as a funding source, and that's what we have done here for that particular project, but that's normal maintenance that takes place at the golf course. There are a few rows here for the agricultural high school. There are a few rows here for the Registry of Deeds with a funding source specific to the Registry of Deeds. And also another funding source, the tech fund for the Registry of Deeds for IT related items down at the bottom of the list. Moving to the not funded tab, we wanted to include a reason or reasons why they were put into this area of the capital plan, meaning decided not to be funded at this time. And you can see that in the rightmost column here. For the top two items, we never actually got estimated costs from the department that we worked with on that, which is the facilities maintenance department. So that's part of the reason why those weren't funded. But there may be other reasons as well. For the windows for the administration building at the high school, county administration believed that that work could be done in-house. There are two projects here for the Registry of Deeds that we were wondering if those could also be done in-house, and with communication with registry staff, it sounds like those projects are on course to be completed that way. So for your review, you have this information here in your packet if you want to read up a little bit more on the reasons why. Now heading over to the summary tab, FY22 only. What we did here was we wanted to get a little bit higher level and focus on totals by department, also including funding sources. So if we look at just this box that I have highlighted currently, this is the one for the county commissioners and the administration, county administration. Currently one item for $10,000 with the funding source of prior year unappropriated balance. If anything was not funded for that department, you would find it here. So I'll just quickly scroll downward so you can see that there's one for each department here and the totals are provided. The golf course, as we talked about, there's a separate funding source, so that's listed on a separate row. And getting downward a little bit further, registry has multiple funding sources, and the treasurer's office didn't have anything funded in FY22. There was only one item that was decided not to be funded. And then at the top, this top box here is the totals countywide with all the departments tabulated together. So you can see all the different funding sources and what the total number of items are to be funded by that funding source, and what the total dollars are to be funded by that funding source. And for the unfunded items as well, although keep in mind there are two items listed there for which we don't have estimated costs, and therefore they would not be included in this $200,000 total. The total would be higher if we had that information. And then on the summary tab, this is the new tab. So you don't have this in your packet. Again, this was in response to a request that that was made last week, or maybe a question that was asked last week. What does the plan look like if we look very high level across the 10 years that we're looking at? And we actually put FY21 in there as well. So it's probably more than 10 years. But we have it by department going downward. Here's your totals by department. So this is everything that's in the plan. And then as we go left to right, you can see the fiscal years for which we currently have the item or project happening, going all the way left to right. And we provided here just a little bit of commentary for maybe some of the larger items. So you can see some of these larger dollar amounts really jump out in these year columns. So what's some additional comments or context that can be provided to help the reader understand what makes up those larger amounts? So you can see that down here in this area. And that is all I was planning on saying about that tab. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all I was planning on saying this evening with regards to the capital plan, but we're happy to take questions or comments at this time.
Thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Becker.
Through you, Mr. Abrahams, I got one question. Is that I thought I heard you say that I understand that the list was out there by department, but was there any prioritization of these separate projects to determine what years they needed to be in, or the importance of the item versus others? For example, on the I realize it's an unfunded list, but on the unfunded list, the Rentham District Court needs an HVAC unit. The treasurer's office needs guest office furniture. I would imagine the HVAC would take priority over that. Was there some sort of determination based on the need or the severity of that particular project?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, are you specifically asking about those items or just generally?
No, just generally.
Okay. So yes, there was. Through the course of conversations that we had with the different departments, we wanted to identify how serious of a need it was, or how high or low of priority the departments considered those items to be. So typically for ones where they consider it to be a high priority, we were looking at them over the next 1, 2, 3 fiscal years, depending on how high of a need it was. For the lower priority items, or maybe an item that needs to be replaced every 5 to 7 years, you would look out in the outer years for those particular things. And there was a lot of information exchanged. So we did our best to capture that. And there were cases where we didn't get word from the departments on how high a priority certain things were, but we did, just through the course of our discussion, get a sense of that. So we did our best to put a year with each of these items, and there is a year with each of the items in the capital plan, but it's not a set in stone thing. So that's why we talked earlier about how we're hoping that the county will use the file that we put together to maintain the capital plan going forward. It's really a working document. So next year, when it comes time to talk about what the capital needs are, we're hopeful that the county and the departments will work on updating that information as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr.
Tom Polito Dedham. The prior year's unappropriated balance, 835. Is that basically all the deeds excise tax money, the extra income we had that we didn't use last year? Is that number in that number? Is that in that number? Or that just balance left over all accounts throughout the year?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe it's not the leftover deeds excise money, but I'm not sure on that. So maybe there's somebody else that can answer that question.
I know last year there was a lot of money left over from the the extra income from the richer deeds, and I was told that we're going to appropriate that money sometime soon. So is that's not money? That's not in the capital plan money? Or if not, where is it? Can somebody answer that question? Can the commissioners answer it? It's their budget.
I'd have to defer to Michelle, but if I can't answer it, I'll find an answer and get back to you, Tom. Michelle, can you weigh in on this?
I'll have to look at that as well, Chairman. I'm not sure where that money is, and it's not something that I was part of conversation, so I'll have to look into that and get back to you if that's okay.
That money's not in these figures that Matt's talking about, though.
Not that I know of, no.
That's correct. All right.
So where was that money then? Can I ask?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, please.
Go ahead.
Through you to the other members, in particular, my colleague from Dedham. I think that, Tom, a lot of this is going to come out during the budget presentation. So I think you'll be able to see where the funds came from and where they're going, how they're being appropriated. I think the capital piece is a little bit different, and that I think your answer will probably come through the presentation of the budget.
Okay, I'll wait till the end of budget. If I hear it, it's okay. If not, I'll ask again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Just another question, Mr. Chairman. It's 835. That's all the money left in all the accounts throughout the year. You're saying the department that didn't spend the money. Is that what that? Basically, most towns will call that free cash. Is that what you're talking about, really? City and towns will call that free cash money. Am I correct with that, Michelle?
Tom, I think you're right on that. I think in most cities and towns, it would be free cash at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, long as
Matt, did you have anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, that was all I was planning on saying regarding capital. We're just going through questions at this time. Yep.
Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would like to, we only have 6 minutes left, so I'd like to shift this to the project update very quickly.
Please.
We have 5 scope items. The multi-year forecast, the financial
different
management practices, the operation and staffing analysis, capital planning, which you've just been briefed on, and the regional services review. Very quickly, we are completing the financial forecast. Like capital, which will be an Excel tool for the county, the financial forecast will also be a tool with the revenue and expenditure projections based on the county's budget. The management best practices has several components. What we focused on was A, the management letter comments, B, the underutilization of the infinite vision system. And with a combination of the financial policies and the better use, the expanded use of the infinite vision system, we believe many of the management letter comments will go away, not for this fiscal year 20, but shortly in the future. Tonight, you'll be, as part of the budget, you will see a $40,500 item for a implementation plan on the Infinite Vision Phase 1 that we're seeking your approval of a budget transfer to finance that so we can get moving on better utilization of the Infinite Vision system. Number 3, the operations and staffing analysis. We have completed the benchmarking. We have shared that with the Finance Committee, comparing the Norfolk County to Bristol and Plymouth counties. We have developed a scope for the review of the agricultural high school. We have issued our job analysis questionnaire, and frankly, the responses to that was very extremely low. Only 50% of the Aggie responded, and roughly 38% of the county responded. Nonetheless, we are conducting interviews at the Aggie, and we'll be starting the interview process on the county side. Matt just gave you an update on the capital planning. I just want to point out that this will be the first time you have a formalized capital plan and capital improvement program, as well as a formalized financial forecast. And lastly, the regional review. The objective is to get a assessment of how the constituent member towns and cities feel about your services. We have a letter that's in draft to go out to the town managers and mayor, and we have a questionnaire ready to go out. Commissioner Shea and Dr. Charles, they're in for your review and comment. Once we get back to your comments, we'll be sending that out and continuing with that effort. So very briefly, that was a quick update of the status and the 5-phase project that we are working with county on at this time. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Matt, thank you very much. We will not entertain any questions on the capital plan at this time. We're going to move into, because we have a public hearing at 7 o'clock, we're going to move into the vote on the third supplemental budget request before we have the public hearing. So I asked the chairman of the Finance Committee to come on board. Joe?
The chair, yep.
Recommendation on the, what is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee met at 6:15 this evening, unanimously approved recommendation of this supplemental appropriation. The supplemental appropriation, and it's appropriate to bring this up now, falls in line with the recommendations of the Abrahams Group. This particular method of approaching county finances and management is something we need to invest in, and the Finance Committee recommends to our colleagues in the full board that they vote this appropriation.
Yes. With any members? A motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Ryan, Mr. Phelan? Okay, motion is made and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anybody in opposition? So we'll record it as such. Instead of going through a roll call, all of those members that were here at the beginning of the meeting have voted in the affirmative for the third supplemental budget. Okay. Now being 7 o'clock, it is time for the public hearing that has been advertised for the Norfolk County budget. Michelle. Michelle, are you going to present on behalf of the commissioners, at least to the summary of your letter of the budget you presented?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the FY22 budget to all of you. You will notice under the appropriate for the Registry of Deeds revenue, the projected deeds excise revenues for FY22 didn't completely fund the indirect costs. The 31,687 that you see on page 3, that total number, the Registry of Deeds revenues represents the total registry department appropriations less the mandate, which equals $22,273.67. And when you add the additional dedicated revenues needed to fund the indirect costs of $9,413, that will equal the $31,687 total that you see on that page. Traditionally, the county uses the unexpended balance to fund a portion of the budget. In FY21, the unexpended balance appropriation increased to $500,000, which was applied this year as well. We separated out the capital spending from the operating budget this year, but we still struggled with a variance. As part of the capital improvements initiative, the budget will come out of the infinite visioning system in lieu of separate department spreadsheets next year, which should be a seamless process in order to address some of the questions that arose from previous management letters we received. Is there any specific questions to the budget, or do you want me to go into more detail?
As much detail as you like at this time.
Well, I'm proud to where we've come in a challenging budget year. We've based a lot of our revenues on being informed by actuals that have been determined throughout the work with the Abrahams Group, which is different. Additionally, we're pleased that we are being fiscally responsible to be able to make $100,000 to our OPEB obligation. We were forced to make additional cuts to provide a FY22 balanced budget, which we're pleased to present to you this evening. Thank you.
Commissioners want to add anything? Mr. Shea, Mr. Stady?
Not at this time, no.
Mr. Collins?
All set.
Okay.
So we've been working hard with the finance board of the county advisory board. We appreciate all their input and all of their help. It's been a very good experience for me being on the other side, actually, and seeing it and getting things worked out. And, you know, we've had our disagreements. That's great. That's what it's all about. But I think the budget we have here obviously is balanced, and we've worked hard to get it to you. So thank you very much.
Any members of the advisory board with any questions?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Polito.
I got quite a few here. On the income side, last year we took in, as I found the minutes from last week, last meeting we had, Mr. Mullins said there was $1.9 million they had left over. We used $200,000, and I asked where that money is going to go to. So there's $1.9 million left from last year. So that's a question I'd like to be answered also. what's the mandated funding for the agriculture school though? It's up this year from past years. Do we have a mandated cost? We have to put more money in that school, or what is that about?
In terms of the statute, Tom, what are you talking about? Or in terms of what our obligation is?
Obligation is, I guess. It's in the, I'll get that I'll get that later when I get there. But on the income side, in past years, every meeting we get an income for the year. Right. What the Richard Deeds took in for, all the excise tax and how we doing year to date. We didn't have it. We don't have it this year. We don't have it this meeting at all. So to make cutbacks, and I heard we're about almost $1 million over from extra from last year. So how are we doing this year to all the extra income coming in, and we have money left over from last year. So when you make cutbacks to employees, I don't know. To me, it doesn't rhyme here, okay? Because we have extra deeds, excise tax money coming in to the extent I don't know, but so that's how you balance the budget. So where is all that money going to? We're going to save it to do capital expenses out of next year, not bring employees back who we let go before.
I think, Tom, a significant amount did have to go to the agricultural school, but I would defer to Chairman Shea or Michelle to answer. But it's on that. If you tab revenue, you look at revenue, it breaks down the deeds excise estimate, the excise revenue, the computer fund, and then breaks it down. I think an awful lot went to, a lot of things happened because of COVID. We had less revenue generated if there was any by the school, but I would defer to Chairman Shea.
I'm talking overall county money, not the school.
Okay.
Well, court rentals went down because of COVID. You're right, Commissioner Stady. We did have some decreases here. The courts were closed, so we had, a decrease in the court rentals that came in. I am looking for my notes because we also were able to pay off one of our loans, which was a decrease. The deeds excise, we still seem we would think that we would see an increase in those revenues because of COVID, but we haven't seen that increase. So that's one question that we have. I'm not sure if that helps answer some questions. The parking revenues, because the courts were closed, so we didn't get the parking revenues. So if that helps answer some of your questions, Mr. Polito.
Some. And one of the things you mentioned here about the 50-50 split.
Yeah.
On the online fees, that's something new.
That is something new. We did have a 50-50 split in the past, and we decided to take 100% of the registry fees. There is no mandate saying that those fees stay with the registry. They actually, I believe, come to the county. And in order to balance our budget, we decided to take 100% of those fees for FY22.
Were any of these cuts discussed with department heads, not just deeds, but the I got another one with the maintenance department. Were these cuts you made discussed with department heads, and do they know about it, or just get in the email and they changed?
No, the maintenance department was part of our conversation, and Commissioner Stady and had some input on that as well, but they were made with the department heads that I know of.
Well, I saw your last meeting online, and it looked like a real messed up meeting about two people getting rid of one high value, then bring two back, and he didn't know about two and one. It was very confusing meeting if you had to watch that meeting. Okay, it wasn't a well-run discussion. He get rid of one high value person. You want to bring back two for cheaper money than the one, and just the conversation went on. It was just very confusing to him and everybody else who was watching it, to me. And I know I'm a budget guy. I know what's going on. And, and there's money out there in the budget, other places to bring people back. So you're cutting people back, and he wants money. And I know Commissioner Stady talked about it at that last meeting. But when somebody asked, the Chairman O'Shea was a little lost in that discussion. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, from the Finance Committee.
Mr. Redden.
To my colleague from Denham, Mr. Polito, I know you were on that call. That was a meeting of the Advisory Board, Finance Committee, and the Commissioners. You have monitored many of our calls.
Just 2 meetings only.
Well, last year as well, Tom, you did monitor some of the calls. And your question about maintenance department in and of itself is disingenuous, because you know at the head of the maintenance department was on there. So to ask if the department heads knew is not only disingenuous, frankly, it's insulting to the finance committee, and I don't appreciate your comments.
I don't appreciate yours either, Mr. Reardon, either. So,
well, my comments are directed to someone who was on the meeting. Why would you say you weren't? You were asking if that being said, Tom, what I would suggest is this. If you have specific questions and we want to entertain them here, two things. One, if you could forward those questions to the finance committee and to the commissioners so that we can take a look at them. If you have ideas with regard to how funding should be moved or done, and you feel that there should be a position that should be changed or whatever, if you could submit that along with where you feel the cut should be made in order to satisfy that, so that we can take a look at it and perhaps the commissioners can take a look at it, that would be very helpful to us.
And it would have been helpful, Chairman for Milton, that I have to be in the finance committee for the last 2 years, and I've been refused by the chair of the committee. And in turn, you put the lady from Wellesley on, who just got on the committee. I don't know who she is, but I asked to be on the committee a couple of years, and I've been refused. So if I'm not going to be on the finance committee, I'm going to do it in a regular meeting, because if the chairman didn't want me on the committee, but I asked too many questions. Okay, well, don't blame me. Blame the chairman of the committee. I have to be on the committee, and he refused me. So,
Mr. Just as a point of order with regard to that, the chair of the finance committee does not appoint the finance.
Not you, the chairman of the whole committee, Mr. Connors didn't.
The advisory board. Thank you for straightening that out.
Not you, Joe. Not you. It's the chairman of the advisory board. I've asked 2 years and I've already gone. He outright refused me. Maybe because I'm not a rubber stamp for some people are rubber stamps here. I am not. And the lady from Wellesley got put on, just got put on the first of the year, and she wasn't an advisory board before. I've been here over 10 plus years here, and I like to be on, and I've been refused. So all my questions will come in a regular meeting, not at the finance committee, because if I'm on the finance committee, I do it then. I'm not in the finance committee, so I won't do it there. I'll do it at a regular meeting, at a public hearing, which I can ask all the questions at a public hearing by law.
Absolutely can.
So I got much more to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, might help our colleague from Dedham, if I may.
Sure.
Sure. I think with Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, there were figures earlier that we had an unappropriated balance in excess of $1 million, correct? That's what you were doing. Okay. So if you look at the tab with revenue, you see in there unappropriated balance of $500,000, correct?
Yes.
All right. Some of that money was applied in different places to, again, achieve a balanced budget. And if I may, I think perhaps your more important question might be, where was that $1.8 million distributed to arrive at that balance of only $500,000? And I think what that might give Chairman Shea and Michelle perhaps a chance to research that and provide you that answer. Because there was a significant amount, but it was over the year, things happened. And as I said, part of the excuse was COVID. We had COVID affect our receipts. Our receipts went down. Registry went up, no question. Registry receipts went up, but other receipts went down. And so I think I think that's what you're trying to get at. Am I right, Tom?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So Michelle, I don't expect you to come up with that answer tonight. It's not fair, but maybe you could just focus that to show where some of that money was applied. And I think a certain amount, I saw it, was applied for the capital program. Wasn't it 800,000? Didn't we see that? Didn't we see unappropriated balance applied to the so-called budget, capital budget? Did we not see that?
I think they told me that's leftover money from each line item. So it's a different, we're talking different money now.
All right. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, I understand where you're going, but give us time to kind of tackle that in the right way and respectful way, and we'll get back to you. It's a good question, but I think again the bottom line is going to be COVID, but we'll sort it out.
Correct.
This is why we're having a hearing. Tonight's the hearing. Here's where we ask questions.
Mr. Chair, if I could further clarify.
Yeah, great.
On top of Commissioner Stady's quite strong points, I think this is a really, and Michelle alluded to this, and we just got off of the Abrahams Group's report. This is a really good point to make, that I would characterize this budget as a transitional budget. Okay. It's a budget where the committee, through the chair of the finance committee and the work of Dr. Childs and many others, looked at the way we look at revenues and the way we split revenues and the way we assess them. and decided, and this body, this advisory board decided to put the money forward to an operational analysis of the Abrahams Group, which just gave a really tremendous report to you. And I can say as a staff member, I'm sure Michelle can agree, and Commissioner Stady and the other commissioners who've been sitting in all these meetings, you know, this is great stuff. This is good government stuff. And so when we talk about the use of the unappropriated balance and possibly surplus from this the fiscal year we're currently sitting in, we're trying to move towards the way in which our constituent towns operate. We're trying to get away from stabilization within the budget. We're trying to get away from what we would call unappropriated balance, what the laymen and the regular folks in other towns would call free cash. We're trying to more align ourselves with the best practices of our constituent towns. And in this snapshot in time, we're like halfway down the road. We're like straddling one way of doing things, looking towards another better, more transparent, more sustainable, most importantly, way of doing things. So I think that really kind of speaks to that when we put the really difficult but important activity of cherry picking through the budget, the capital items and pulling them out and then dealing with them with additional revenues, as every community does, and creating a schedule of how we figure out our revenues, not just trying to estimate with our best guess, but actually using tried and true financial policies, which will come before this body. I think that's probably why we're in the situation and why it may be a little confusing or a little frustrating, because we're kind of on the road now. And so I think next year, I'm excited. It's going to be awesome. But I think that's why we're looking at how, you know, with this capital needs and why we're being, I think the other piece is, as the other communities, our constituent communities have, we're still being conservative. We're still being guarded because of the volatility we're in with local receipts, and things could happen. And God forbid there's a COVID variant that the shot doesn't work on or what have you, and right back to where we were a year ago. So I think those are all, I think that's kind of how we have gotten to this position, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Childs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two or three points I thought might help the conversation. The first one is, I want to remind our board that last year there was an employment freeze around the COVID situation in order for us to make our budget work. And even after that, we were dealing with a $500,000 structural deficit with a funding gap. And as Bill was just explaining, we are making progress to resolving that $500,000 structural deficit. And you see that in this budget as we move to try to close that gap, to move forward to have a budget where we can actually have confidence in revenues that are developed based on trend lines, not taking the volatility of, oh, we've got a good quarter, a bad quarter, but actually looking at a solid trend line to estimate our revenues so we don't get ourselves back into a structural deficit situation. So that's really important as we look at this budget to remember what we did last year and where we're trying to get to this year for next year. I think the transitional, understanding it as a transitional budget is helpful. And then I just wanted to, for those people who cannot read the chat because they're on the phone, since it is an open meeting, it's very important that we publicly explain where people can access the budget documents. And I just wondered if Bill or Michelle, Joe did put it in the chat, our Finance Committee Chairman, but I'm wondering if somebody could just speak it up out loud so that everybody can find those documents if they want to. Thanks.
From Range, so just saying.
I know you're heading down to Bradley's. No, I mentioned to him.
Excuse me. From Norfolk, Patricia St. Robin.
Sure. I think Charles had his hand up before I did, but if you'd like me to go chair, I will.
Please.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay. I have a few questions about the actual budget. And, you know, in a couple of places, there's a line item and it says pending. Generally, there's like a person's name, an employee's name. But can someone explain what pending means as the line item, please?
Joe?
I think I'll feel like you want, Joe, you want to handle that? On facilities, there's a pending, it's not a name, it just means it's an open slot pending final approval of the budget.
Right? No, I don't think so, Mr. Stady. I think that the pending is because they appear also in the registry, the facilities, they appear in the school, all budgets. Those are positions that have been filled and people may have retired, left the position is still there, and they just haven't filled the position yet. That's
there's no human.
Last year on some of those positions, the finance committee and the advisory board did not fund those positions, so they were still pending, but they were zeroed out in dollars. This year, some of them are zeroed out in dollars. If you look at the top part of the, and I'm not picking on anyone's budget, if you look at the registrars, on the top part, there are four pending, and there is zero salary on 4 of those. If you go to the bottom part of the scale, you'll see pending, and they are funded positions.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So my second question is regarding the Wollaston Golf Facility. I believe it's page 15. For 2020, the Pro Shop tournament sales, it's $84,000. And the year before there was nothing. So can someone explain what went on there? Please.
I can take it through Mr. Chair if Michelle will give me a leave to. Yes, that's a great question. Thanks for pointing it out, Ms. St. Aubin. In years past, we contracted out that service. So the pro at the Wollaston facility was not a county employee. He paid to be the pro at the county employee. And so he joined us as a county staffer. And so by doing so, the proceeds from that pro, he ceased to like rent it's kind of like renting a space in a building you own, whereas he was part of the county proper. So the revenue he generated became revenue for the golf course as a whole, which was a pretty wise decision on our part.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple more questions, but the engineering department, it looks like we're bringing back a surveyor for like $71,000. I seem to remember that, somewhere along the line, it was decided we didn't need that person. So now we're rehiring a surveyor, and there's some sort of county needs that are precipitating that.
Yes, county surveyor department had resigned recently in February, so we need to replace that position.
I thought I read some verbiage, something about it was assessed that because of the county needs, this person needed to be added on. It didn't appear to me as if it was a replacement position. It looked like we were bringing back someone.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of order on that?
Mr. Beckerman.
On the budget, I do see the line you're speaking of, my colleague from Norfolk. But it looks like the commissioners actually zeroed that line out. The requested amount was 110,000, but the approved amount is 0. So am I reading that properly? I'll put that out to the commissioners.
You are.
So that's a position that's on the list, but not being funded, correct?
Correct.
It's in the budget, so.
Well,
let me budget supersede everything.
Well, the final column on the budget, the approved amount, I believe, is the commissioner's recommended budget, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So anything that's zeroed out on that line, the commissioners are not funding.
Okay.
For this coming year.
All right. My last question is pertaining to the treasurer's office. There appears to be a Ms. Bellotti that is on the payroll, along with now Treasurer Bellotti. May I ask what the relationship is between those two people, please?
I can answer that question. There is a clerk in the treasurer's office. I believe she's a 12-year employee because I looked at it recently. I had a call with the same question. The individual woman is a 12-year employee of the county. She is the former wife of one of the present treasurer's brother. But she's been a 10, I'd say 12 or 13-year employee of the county. And he's the elected treasurer who was elected in November of last year. She's a former sister-in-law.
Okay.
But she did, if I can on that, she did not go in that office this year. She's been in it for 3 or 4 years. She's
more than that.
In that office. She transferred from someplace else, but she has been in the treasurer's office before Mr. Bellotti, before Mr. Timilty, and probably during the term of Mr. Conley.
Okay, just trying to see if there's a conflict of interest, but thank you for those answers. I'm done, but thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to have my questions.
Thank you, appreciate it. Charlie, Ryan from Braintree, and Charlie, thank you for allowing me to jump over you first.
No problem, thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to say that I think this is a good budget. Some tough decisions had to be made. Everyone's had a tough year after COVID, and I can tell that you had to make tough decisions, but I really have faith in the commissioners and the full-time staff. They know where the cuts should come from. And I wanted to, again, I feel very confident because I think we have the best finance committee we've had in a long time on the advisory board. And I want to thank them as well. And I think, with an interim director, a new commissioner, and, a new group, the Abrams group, looking at things, I feel very confident that we have good eyes on this. We have good commissioners that have been here, Mr. Shea. And I think that Mr. Collins have been, here a long time, and I have a lot of confidence in this budget. So while I hear that there were previous meetings where people are upset, well, when you have to make budget cuts, everybody's not happy. And that's just a fact of life. And I think, you're going to see a lot of that. So I think you have my support in this budget moving forward. And I think, we're in a good shape from institutional knowledge, new perspective, transparency. I really like what's going on with this budget. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Chairman Connors.
Mr. Shea. Commissioner.
I've hesitated weighing in on some of these questions because of some of the reasons that were stated earlier about all these various new nuances and new things that we're trying to be committed to and then balance it all together. But when we started talking, Tom Polito's question was relative to last week's meeting and a position in the maintenance department. Let me see if I can't clarify that. And yes, we did have a longer discussion than we usually do, but it was new for us. Certainly cutting one position is difficult. We received 2 letters from the department head, one mid-2020 talking about this position. I put it in the file on February 24th when we were first meeting we had with department heads with the draft budget. There was a letter again from the department head asking us to eliminate the one position, the night roving foreman, and add 2 level entry custodians. We try to work with department heads. We were around and around about it. We agreed to work with him. However, the vote that was taken is to eliminate that position and only give him 1 level entry custodian. So we're not, in fact, we're not increasing the budget. He said that the job is at this time not needed, and this is his recommendation. He's a career employee. Maintenance department had a banner year because of COVID, and in crisis, and day to day, they do a great job, but in crisis, they do a phenomenal job, and they proved it this year. And I think, and we did not entirely agree among the 3 of us, but that's the vote that was taken. You'll see 1 or 2 other jobs in here pending that we're reviewing because there are some folks out on comp or other issues. We had a comp hearing this month on an employee who hasn't been here for 5 years. This this costs money because we have to replace them on an overtime basis. So we're having another hearing on April 28th to consider one person that has exhausted all avenues. He cannot physically do the job. We have a retirement was announced this week that was, since we printed this budget, and this is not a pet peeve of mine, but this changes every day. Our county plumber, who's in this budget, sent his letter in last Thursday or Friday, Michelle?
Yes.
He's retiring next week. These people are entitled, of course, to sick and vacation time. The payout comes from their line. We're going to have to hurriedly, quickly fill a plumbing position, but we're going to be without a plumber for a while because we don't have the wherewithal to rob from Peter to pay Paul, because I don't know this particular gentleman what his payout figure is, but I know he's entitled to it. And, you know, this goes on not only in this department, in every department. The engineering department is down to 3 people. County surveyor, Mr. McNichols, came in February, even after his budget was sent in, and he said, I'm all done. We've posted the job. We've received 2 resumes. We're looking for a civil engineer, very difficult to get at the pay scale, but we have to have someone with a stamp, even if it's a stamp of a registered land surveyor, which the previous owner, the previous county engineer, Mr. McNichols, was a registered land surveyor. So some of the work has been held up because we're down to 3 people, and we've got many, many projects, and we're balancing. The payout for the county engineer, who was a longtime employee, I don't know if it was over 20 years, but it was down near it, was substantial. We're going to have to bring a person in and interview them, and then perhaps tell them, you can't start until July 1st because we don't have the money to pay you right now. So these things happen daily and certainly weekly, but we're trying to manage this the very, very best we can. It doesn't take, I mean, the bigger departments are the drivers here, and the treasurer's department, the engineering department, it's very difficult to cull any money of these very small departments. So what happens is we'd always look to maintenance and the registry, but you know, the registry people and everyone performed phenomenally through COVID too. And thank God the revenue didn't go down as much as we originally thought it would, because we didn't know what we were dealing with. So it's a day-to-day thing. And if I don't understand the questions, I don't want you to appear that we don't understand them. We'll take them under advisement and get back to you as soon as possible. I think sometimes it's a semantic or how we're phrasing the question. So I'm here to listen, but if we can resolve some of these things specifically.
Mr. Shea, that's a good segue into,
that's all I have.
Good segue into continuing with the public hearing. There are members of the public that would like to speak.
Thank you.
I don't have them as members. I've been listening to the advisory board people. And as you said, we're here to listen. You're here to listen. So if there's anybody from outside of the advisory board that would like to speak, please state your name and the town you're representing or calling from. And I can't. Bill,
I'm Jennifer Matthew. I'm from Medfield.
Okay, thank you.
How are you?
Good, thank you. The
Good.
floor is yours.
Thank you. I plan to filibuster you. So I'd like to talk about the Norfolk Aggie. And I'm also really disappointed that there's no budget expert on this call that can field all of these questions that are coming internally from the towns. Just as a citizen of Norfolk County, it doesn't give me any confidence that anyone knows what's going on. And this started for me in fall of 2019. My daughter started at the Norfolk Aggie. I was elected to the School Improvement Council. I attended my first meeting and was met by Rick Fitzpatrick, the business manager, who in retrospect was not supposed to be at that meeting. It is not legal. You can look that up. And he was there to tell me of all the budget problems and that teachers would lose jobs if they couldn't do something. So how do you think, as a parent, that feels when you show up as a new school improvement council member and that's what you're met with? Didn't feel very good. Same meeting, I found out about the solar project and then found out about the mismanagement of the solar project. Went to the county commissioners in February of 2020 to say, what the hell is going on? Who's paying attention? Do you realize that you have huge budget overruns at the school? Do you realize that the solar project is being entirely mismanaged?
Point of order. Point of order. What does this have to do with the supplemental budget? I mean, with the 22 budget.
That's great, Mr. Ryan. I'll get into that. The budget has not balanced at the school for the majority of the past 15 years. The salaries that, first of all, is anyone on this call an expert as far as, no, never mind. I'll take that back. Do you look at the salaries that are being offered to the individuals at the school? Do you get into the detail, into the line items? Because for a school of 600 students in a single district, our superintendent and business manager are at the highest end of the pay spectrum. Do you all realize this? But you approve it by approving the budget that this is all within. The budget subcommittee for our board of trustees has been the same stale subcommittee for the past 15 or so years. It doesn't change and they don't get it done. The budget consistently has a deficit in it. It's been changed this year. It's always just rolled forward to the next year and called receipts from prior year to balance in the revenue side. But it's not balancing if it continues to roll over year after year after year. And I'm told that that isn't even legal. So I don't know whether it's legal or not legal. But you're approving this. You, the advisory committee. How did the Abrams Group send the job analysis questionnaire to the school, and whom did they send it to? Because the teachers I've spoken to received nothing. I think that needs to be answered. How does the school have a $200,800 unappropriated funds from fiscal year 21, which is this year, when their teachers are being told that there's no money for any more expenses out there? So where is this $200,000 coming from for capital expenses for next year? And that's really upsetting. Why is the school buying a new rack body truck for $45,000 when we have a rack body truck? Why do we need a new one? Who makes these decisions? Because they're not brought in front of the board of trustees to vote on. So is this happening unilaterally in some bubble somewhere? And the discussion at the last meeting about capital versus operational expenses, I feel like that was a disingenuous conversation or just plain wrong. An operational expense cannot exceed, by the IRS standards, roughly $2,500 to $5,000. And whichever chairman it was quoting a value of $15,000 as when it kicks into a capital expense. That's just not right. The maintenance staff at the school, nearly $500,000 in salaries, plus $140,000 in the budget for contracted maintenance. You cannot afford both. Who is looking at it? There was $141,000 spent, or at least allocated in fiscal year 21. What was it spent on when you have $500,000 staff running around that school? I see the windows on there as going to be done in-house as an operational expense, $40,000. It's a capital expense. So is it going to be capitalized, but it's going to fall in the operating budget because you're going to pay the operating salaries of our maintenance staff? Highly confusing. As far as other contracted services, if you look at the utilities line item, it's essentially level funded from last year at $300,000. We had a battle out there, I think you know about the solar, that completely divided our Aggie community. There was at least $80,000 in cost savings promised for the implementation of the solar. Where is that $80,000 credit for our utility cost for next year? Why are we inflating line items like that and not pulling out a contingency line item? Why would you allow fat in the budget to float around on line items where it doesn't belong, where it can't be tracked? This is not prudent. There is no money in our fiscal year 22 budget for any teacher cost of living raises. This is a contract negotiation year. Why is there no money? You can't even go into contract negotiations in good faith. You have nothing to give the teachers. And one more little tidbit. There's a complaint with DESE right now, letting them know that the program advisory boards that our school is supposed to have, the program advisory boards that bring forward what the teachers need for the upcoming year and bring it to a general advisory board that then is supposed to publicly meet with the board of trustees to advise them what our school needs, that doesn't happen. One single man, the business manager, goes individually to the teachers to find out what they need. We never hear collectively what that is, and decisions are made. And the budget subcommittee of the budget trustees, never a public meeting. Supposed to be a public meeting. It's not a use of executive session. This has to stop, and you need to make it stop. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the public audience?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry,
Julie.
I had my hand up, but I didn't know if you could see me.
I can see you. Go ahead, Julie.
Sure. So my name's Julie Perillo. I'm a resident of Dedham, and I have a child at Norfolk Aggie, and I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of things here. So I'm speaking as a parent. A letter recently went out from a group of parents known as the Aggie Alliance to cities and towns in Norfolk County, relating to significant concerns with how the Aggie is managed. And specifically, the letter addressed concerns with financial management, bloated administrative compensation packages with some salaries ranging from over $100,000 to over $150,000 that also include free housing and all free utilities. The lack of transparency, the lack of a state-required advisory committee for vocational programs, the botched handling of the solar panel project, and the stunning teachers union vote of no confidence, which was taken on February 24th and has still not formally been addressed by the Board of Trustees. It is my hope that members of this advisory board take action and insist upon transparency and a full accounting of all of the issues listed in that letter. This school is a wonderful place of learning for my child and hundreds of others, but the concerns over the management run very deep. Thank you.
I'd just like to remind everybody that this is a budget hearing and not a hearing on the school. If we want to have a hearing on the school and management of the school and practices of the school, we can do a separate advisory board meeting. But I want to continue a budget process here.
Right. So yeah, my point in sharing what I did was to talk about the budget and the money that comes in from my town and others and how it's being spent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I go back to something that was maybe perhaps misquoted earlier?
Go ahead, Mr. Stady.
Thank you. I'll do that very quickly. I just want to make sure we're not misleading a member of the advisory board. I don't think there was any intent on the engineering department. It is our intention, I believe, to fully fund both the assistant and the regular surveying position in that department. If I'm wrong, please, I'll stand corrected. But we advertised and we had 2 applicants for the assistant, let's say, person in terms of that department. That position had been vacant for a long time. And then we had the sudden departure of Mr. McNichol. I think it was a conscious, deliberate, and a very good decision by the commissioners to fully fund that department, because we've seen how they are utilized and how they do serve you people who are here tonight, the member communities. A week doesn't go by where, since I've been on the board, letters are coming in from Stoughton, from Braintree, from Norfolk and other towns where they need something done by our county engineers. And in fact, we've talked to Bill Buckley and others about putting out even a little bit of an advance notice so that the towns know what we're doing. They are a good group. They're hardworking, but I do think there was a misunderstanding by Pat because she said it looked like we were increasing the number of people. It was underfunded. We are now bringing back 2. So it will be funded. And I don't think it's not an increase in the budget though, because it was underfunded for prior years.
Thank you, Mr. Stady.
Mr. Chair, could I
onto the screen, Mr. Kennedy? There's a Bob Kennedy.
Yes, but I didn't put my hands up. But I'll tell you, I'm very proud of the services the engineers do for the town of Medfield. They have always done a great job, and I know that this engineering department was eviscerated 3 or 4 years ago, and they lost several positions. Then I'm glad to see that you guys are trying to bring it back up to the standards that the county towns can use, because I know Medfield uses them all the time, and we've had great luck with the county engineers. So thank you for asking me.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Natasha,
Chairman?
I just saw Natasha.
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me, Mr. Buckley. Natasha?
Hi, yes. I'm another parent from the Aggie, and I do want to keep this financially based because I know this is a budget meeting.
You identify your community, please.
Sure, I'm from Framingham. I'm actually one of the out-of-county towns that pays on the order of $23,000 for my child and others to attend the school.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Speak.
I just wanted to state that a lot of the problems that are being mentioned and are being discussed are indeed financially based. So there's a fundamental issue here where when teachers or other staff ask for certain things to be funded, things that are very, very critical to the running of the school, they are all too often told that those things can't be afforded. And this jeopardizes a lot of things at the school. I served actually on a committee with staff and teachers there working on technology and trying to get funding for necessary technology, including for the year for COVID. I understand that was definitely a challenge, but I also know that part of the problem that we encountered was that initially there was great reluctance to fund any number of things that were absolutely required for handling the hybrid model that was proposed. And so this ripples into everything. It ripples into safety, whether you can hire paraprofessionals, that can put you at jeopardy financially if you don't have the appropriate people there to ensure safety of the numerous students that the school takes on who are on IEPs or have other types of issues where they need—
Point of order. Point of order. This isn't about the FY22 budget. This is, the meeting being changed.
This is about the FY22 budget. I'm sorry to—
No, I disagree with you. I think—
But you're signing off on a budget that isn't balanced, and you're signing off on a budget that allows for the houses and everything to still be provided.
I'm not running the meeting, but I think you guys are taking over the meeting. So I think you need to talk about the budget, FY22 budget. Thank you.
Natasha,
What?
would you like to finish your point?
Sure. It is about the FY22 budget, because when you sign off on these values for the school without looking deeper into what's going on, the school is still not functioning the way it could be. And also money that comes from the towns is being wasted in areas where it shouldn't be. We want to see the school funded well, and we want to see the money that comes from all of the individual communities used for what it should be. And all we're asking is that you take a really close look at how it is being spent and perhaps work with the school to help that pattern change.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your—
You're welcome. Laura Lee Willard.
I didn't ask to speak. Thank you, though.
Well, if you're going to be brief, I'm going to try to recognize everybody. Normally at a public hearing, we're in front of everybody, we can see everybody, and people have their hands up but don't have. It's hard to tell from who wants to speak and who does not want to speak because I keep seeing on the screen there are people in the chat room that want to talk, but I don't know who those people are. And I do see names up on the screen and it says, "We are Norfolk Aggie." I see others that have just their name up. It doesn't say where they're from. So I'm giving everybody an opportunity to speak at a public hearing. And that's the process we're going to go through. And I would just, if you're just concentrating on the issue dealing with the school and mismanagement and things of that nature, make a quick bullet point, fine, but I would like you to focus on the budget. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak then?
I do, the board member, but I'll wait for the public first.
I don't hear from anybody, so go ahead, Mr. Polito.
3 more questions. On the engineering department, it is going down from requested of 570 to 504, but it looks like we're not funding a survey crew chief requested for 71 and not funded. Are we not funding a position there?
Through Mr. Chair, I can answer that question.
Go ahead, Mr. Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so this also sort of touches on Ms. St. Aubin's point as well. And for historical information, the engineering department used to be 14 humans with 3 surveyors, an engineer, and then 10 sort of the members of the union, project managers, survey crew chiefs. So yes, due to the tremendous amount of demand from the Norfolk County constituent towns, the initial request was for an assistant surveyor and a survey crew chief. But with the turnover at the top position as well, because we're sort of, again, in a period of transition, those funds were put into, if you're looking on page with me, 46,
yes,
a permanent salary reserve that can be allocated when we hire a new person and see what their stamps are, if they are an engineer with a PE or a PLS. And I see, Mr. Kennedy from Medfield shaking his head as a DPW person. And I know Mr. Baldwin as well has been a great advocate for this, this department. We can then see where best to allocate those personnel dollars. But again, to tie it back to the Abrahams Group's best practice report, what we are hearing from every community and town manager is more of these services. These services, by the way, are given to Norfolk County communities for $0. So, and the preponderance of them are surveyor and surveying in nature. So again, as sort of the top job is solidified, we can then look at where to allocate that funding, but it is less than requested. And frankly, the request was modest. I think ideally 10 years from now, perhaps it looks like the department looks like it did 10 years ago, because there's no shortage of demand from all of our constituent communities.
Oh, I'm not against funding the jobs, but it just looks like we're eliminating a job, and I don't think we want to do that. But just the money wise, looks like one job is going down, and I just didn't want to, I know a lot of towns want that. So just budget wise, it looks like we're going, because the assistant county surveyor it's not funded for $0, but the 115 to me will offset that. So it looked like we're still down one position budget wise.
Correct. Through you, Mr. Chair. If you look at in the column that says rate of compensation 6/30/2020, the farthest left column, you'll see that that position didn't exist. So that 7/1 rate of compensation, that's a new position as well. So they are both, that shows the 2 that they was asked for. Okay. So that position didn't exist a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Okay.
There's no human in that now.
Okay. Another, in the treasurer's office, are we eliminating position there also?
No, sir. Again, that was a position that was initially requested by the department head, but does not, there's no human there.
That's a position that was vacated last year.
Oh, so it wasn't funded last year?
We had someone in that position that resigned and we didn't replace them.
Oh, okay. And just on the Aggie budget, and most of you know, I'm on the Blue Hills Regional, chairman of the Blue Hills Regional School Committee. When I do the budget there, I just have a concern when you try to put a grant reimbursement into a budget to balance the budget. If the grant goes sour, they have $190,000 in there for grant. And if that grant goes away, I don't know what the grant's for. but if, you know, when you're trying to balance the money with grant money, and you know how the grant with the government is, you state, it might not come next year. So now with the people working for the program, now we're $190,000 in the hole. So, you know, at Blue Hills, we don't budget anything with grants because you don't know from year to year it's going to come or not. So that's a concern to me. And the other thing, what is on the $4.2 million? What does that county commitment mean? I know the school revenue is $10 million. What's county commitment mean? That's the money we have to give the school to balance the budget out of our budget? What does that mean? Michelle or Bill? Or the chairman, Chairman Shea?
What page are you on, please? I just
50. This is county commitment $4,230,000. Can you explain what that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps Rick or Tammy could better clarify, but I believe it's in the same kind of vein as mandated school spending.
That's school spending amount. You have to meet that.
But just as like the town of Dedham would have.
Right. So we have to come up with $4.2 million just to be at the net school spending amount.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I believe. You know, if I'm in error, I think somebody from the Aggie can correct me. But
I agree. I think someone from the Aggie could speak to that.
Rich or Tammy?
Yeah, this is Rick Fitzpatrick. That indication of that $4.2 million is the actual minimum mandated amount that the school gets from the county annually, which is increased by by the 2.5% each year. So it is, in fact, in reality, what you could call a similar parity to net school, local contribution.
Okay. Yeah, net school spending. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, answer my question.
Okay, if I go back to the screen, I had a person on the screen. I don't see him now. And I can't make it. KDAMI.
Yeah, that's it's actually Robert Damish. I didn't have my hand up. I do have a question, but I was waiting to see if there's any other public who want to speak before I have kind of a small question. So, Mr. Chairman.
Question while you're on.
Okay. All right. So page 32, it has to speak with the treasurers. There's a line item there that talks about, I think it's like $37,000 for a reduced work week. And I'm curious, is that a personnel expense, or are we saving money because we're shutting the building down? What exactly make that money up?
Through Mr. Chair, I could speak to that. To
Go ahead, Mr. Buckley.
Good friend from the greatest town in the county, Walpole, Massachusetts, birthplace of both he and I. If you look above, you can see it that the executive assistant and the executive assistant AP clerk is a 0.8 FTE. So they're not full FTEs. So it's not like a 1.0. So that's where that comes down. I am almost positive.
Yes, both those positions are 4-day-a-week positions.
The two the ones that say 24/9, is that what you said?
Yes. If you look to the left, it says 0.8 FTE, which is full-time equivalency.
Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. Thanks for showing that to me, Bill. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Sorry about that. Anybody else?
I have no more questions, but the chairman just keep on cutting me off.
I'm not cutting you off. I'm letting everybody, and I keep coming back to you, Mr. Polito. You get every chance you're going to get.
Okay.
I'm mixing it up with everybody, so you're not doing one person on the budget. Is there anybody else? Mr. Polito.
Could it, if the Richard Deeds is on, can you give us an update on how much, for budget-wise, how much increase we have this year coming in above what's budgeted for the deeds, all the income we usually show? We didn't get this year yet. I don't know if he's online. I didn't check.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. As far as the deeds, it has been, even though with COVID, as was mentioned by others, it's been a busy and challenging year. Through, for instance, the county share of deeds excise through March 31st is over 2.4 million. The registry share, which again is through Chapter 64D, is 1.6 million. Using past tables that the county administration provided, and again, the county administration gets transaction fees. Through March, we have actual numbers, and using what the county had done as estimates, which they've been beating their estimates, the budget this year that was used for fiscal year 21 was 2.3 million. And based on the estimates that the county came up with monthly, combined with the actuals through March, that amount, transaction fees, is over $1.1 million above that 2.3 million. So if it progresses according to the estimates April, May, and June, and again, we've been beating those estimates. For instance, March, the county had estimated 169,280, and it actually came in at 371,000. That's transaction fees. So it's on target through June 30th to be $3.4 million, again, for fiscal 21. So transaction fees are up, and deeds excise has also been up. Again, I believe the budgeted amount was like 2.5, a little over 2.5, again, fiscal 21. And using actual numbers through March for the county share, plus April, May, June, which we're still, in April and collecting them daily, that's supposed to be 3.2 million. That's on track to be 3.2 million. So it's on track to be the county share again, the county share. Remember, when deeds excise is collected, most of it goes to the state, 89.375%, but there is a 10% breakdown, 6.375% to the county, 4.25% to the registry. That's what they call the 60-40 split. So that amount is 3.2 million that it's on track to, which is over $812,000 over budget, over what was estimated in fiscal 21. So I want to take the time to thank the registry workers. I mean, it hasn't been easy with COVID, knock on wood. We have stayed open every day. We've stayed operational through some of the modernization initiatives, and I thank the advisory board for supporting the registry so that those initiatives, which we never thought would be used for a pandemic, have got us through the pandemic. So that's the answer to the question, I hope, and thank you.
Thank you.
So just to recap, Bill, so we're, as of now, $800,000 to the good as of right now over last year, not counting 3 more months? Or you projecting?
No, that would count 3 months, Tommy. What was done, and again, many of you might have remembered, this goes back to Jack Casey, and it would come in. There's an estimate for April, May, and June. So if you use that estimate that for each month, and again, for instance, March, the estimate that was determined, made by the county, was 150,000, and we collected deeds excise 206,000. That's the share of the county share. So if you add the 3 months, just use the 3 months left, April, May, and June, the numbers that are estimated, combine what's been collected from July 1st to March 31st. On deeds excise, it's on track, using those numbers, to be $812,000 over the estimated deeds excise estimate that was used. And on the transaction fees, again, similar analysis, there was an estimate for fiscal 21 of 2.3 million, and you're on track. The county gets 100% of the transaction fees to be over 3.4 million.
So you just
that would be that'd be $1,121,429 to the good on transaction fees, 812,000 thereabouts on deeds excise. You combine the two together.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Polito.
So, I mean, what I'm looking for, 812 is right now. Going to past that, we could be about $1 million over in income on the retro deed side. It looks like on the income side, you're only using about $400,000 there, roughly. It went from 19,592 to 19,975. So I'm saying there is room on the income side to adjust some of these positions you've cut. There's over $1 million extra this year. That's not budgeted. So that's one comment I'd like to make there. Hoping the commissioners will go back and look at the budget again, and some positions that you think should be funded, there is money available to fund that, because there's about $1 million more this year. We can adjust the income. The other thing, do we put back the $500,000 back in the stabilization fund we took out last year to balance the budget?
We did.
We did?
Mm-hmm.
We applied it this year to FY22.
Okay, we did that. Okay. Just one more question on the egg. The couple of mentions about the salaries here. I know that my understanding, they both have, two of them have houses paid for by the county at no cost to them. Maybe look at income. Maybe we should look at, are they getting income 1099 for that income for the house, or they should charge rent? One district out there, they can stay in the house but they pay rent. If it's not part of the package, I think we should look at that. Maybe rent them out. And when the director makes $163,000 according to the budget, and we give her a house for nothing. And I don't think from my understanding, it's not included on her income. What's another issue that the treasurer and the county should look at? If we're giving houses out there to live in, there should be some income requirement for the IRS. So there's two of them out there. I heard one was done over a couple of years ago. They should all be looked at. And we should address that letter that the lady mentioned maybe at our next meeting and outside of the budget hearing, and we already know what's going on, because the letter we got is very damaging to a lot of people. Outside the budget hearing next week, next month.
Thank you, Mr. Polito. Mr. Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to say to the parents that are on the call, I don't want to come across as dismissive. I think if we can offer you a forum where you can talk about your concerns with the Aggie, maybe we should ask to be on a future agenda for the advisory board. I think just with us discussing the public hearing for the FY22 budget, I don't think that's the right forum. But if you wanted to ask Chairman Connor, if you could have time to talk about your concerns, I think that'd be more appropriate. And I appreciate your involvement with the school and trying to make it and keep it the wonderful place it is. So thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Connor.
Mr. Stady.
Yeah, personal privilege. If I may, I want to commend the representative from Dedham for all his points tonight. As always, Tom has his pen sharp and he's done his homework. But keep in mind, just as a town has to look for free cash, it's fluid, Tom, and this budget's fluid. I think Chairman Shea said that it's an ongoing, evolving process. We'd be remiss if we suddenly said, we're going to take money that looks like it's going to be there and applied it. And then suddenly, when we close our books, the money isn't there. I think moving forward, we look at that money and we put it towards something next year. We've done that before. It's similar to free cash, but free cash has to be certified, as you know, in a town before you spend it. So good points. I thank you as always for your input. To the people who are out on the Aggie call, it's difficult to address all their concerns as a new commissioner. I think they've made their point clear, and some of those things I think are subject perhaps of negotiations that the trustees are going to handle with the new superintendent. They should know that we had interviews all this afternoon with some very good candidates. They should know that there is a new dawn approaching for the Aggie school. I'd ask them to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more restrained. They made their points about the housing. They've made their points about compensation. We're not blind. We're not deaf. We're looking at all those things. Mr. Ryan, everyone else should know that. All those things will be factored in moving forward. I think there's a time where, you start saying things over and over and over, and it gets a little redundant. The point is made. It's being listened to. We're trying to get a change in there. Hopefully, things are going to get a little better as we move forward. And we're all on top of these other issues. We're doing the best we can. Remember, we don't have our regular director. Michelle's doing the very best she can under the circumstances. She's doing a great job. She's not the county director. So to start taking personal shots about how we don't have this person or that person, I'm offended by that. That's not fair. I think we've worked very hard on this, and the FinCom has worked hard on this, and I think the results will prove itself out in the next month or so. So thank you very much. It's been a long day. I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but it's been a long day, and we're all working very hard to get these things done. Thank you.
On the budget, one last go around. Anybody? Hand up for Dr. Childs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think that I would appreciate, I think we should take a deeper dive into the Aggie budget. And I want to think about how we best do that. The Abrams Group, as part of their scope, is looking at some issues about the Aggie, and I think it might be very helpful to get that information back. This is very hard, I think, for parents, but if we could, it may not actually happen for this budget, but I actually think we owe it to the school and the school's functioning to make sure that we support that school in the best way possible. And perhaps we could get the Abrams review. And then I was thinking, this is really a question to you, Mr. Chairman, and maybe Commissioner Shea and Chairman Reardon and Michelle. I'm wondering if there's some way we could put that on an agenda going forward, making that a priority next year after this FY22 budget, to really dig into what's going on with the Aggie budget and get that, like we've gotten like we're stabilizing the whole county. I almost feel like maybe the next step is to try to do something similar for the Aggie and really look at it, kick the tires on that budget and see where we might help. So it's really a question as to how to best do that. But I think we would be remiss if we did not take seriously when parents come forward with concerns about how the school is functioning. And that does have to do, the budget is involved in that. So I want to find some way to address these concerns.
I agree with you, Dr. Childs, and that's why I had said earlier on I wanted to talk to the budget items, but I would let anybody that wanted to speak tonight, so we weren't shutting them up. Let them know that the door is now open for them.
Yeah, as you know, Chairman Connors, it's really a great thing to do for people. It's what we're here to serve people. So that's the point.
Exactly.
So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Anybody else on the budget?
I wondered if maybe Chairman Shea or Michelle and maybe Chairman Reardon could kind of respond a little bit, because I feel like we need to have some plan of what we're going to do going forward.
Michelle.
I can speak, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Shea, Commissioner.
I was going to wait till the end, and I've been taking all of this in as I've taken all of the other issues in. It was our hope last fall, when we bid out and hired the Abrams Group to do this complete study, not only of the school, but everything else, to have it coincide with this budget. And there still is a chance, and I have not been pressuring them because they give good reports, they're accessible, they answer all our questions. I was hoping to wrap it all into one thing, in addition with some other changes that are made. We're getting a new superintendent of the school. I won't, Chairman Little's on the call. I won't go out on a limb, but I think it's going to be announced within a week as number one. Number two, the county itself. This office is operating without a county director. We all worked well with Mike Mullen. Mike Mullen moved on and left this building on or about March 5th. He has been consulting, not consulting, but he has been helping out. He's not, getting paid or anything, because last year's budget was a different budget, and he was almost the sole owner of it, so to speak. And Michelle was brought on as acting director because she had some working knowledge of last year's budget with Mike. Bill also has that knowledge. We lost our county engineer, in his case, a positive move because he's retiring. So we're gonna try to pull all of this stuff together. We're asking all our employees to come back full-time starting next week or the week after on April 26th. We've been operating this office some days, and I hate to cry like this because I'm a proud public employee myself and a retired public employee. And this office some days operates with 2 people. When it normally operates with 5 or 6, that's without the RSVP people, which is separate. And I don't want to cry about it. I don't believe the other commissioners do. We go right along as much as we can, but we have 3 or 4 major decisions that have to be made in the next 8 weeks. The last thing I'll report on is this board hired an outside consultant, a regionally known company, to find us a new county director. The search date was last Friday for people to apply. Their list is going to be to us sometime around April 26th. And as Commissioner Stady said earlier today, we had scheduled a meeting for May 12th to review the finalists. They're only going to supply us with finalists. We didn't pressure them either. I don't know the names. No one here knows the names. We're going outside. We thought it would be a breath of fresh air. It isn't that there aren't capable people in the county, there are. So the combination of these 3 high management changes, particularly the superintendent of the school and the county director and the Abrams group, is really, I think, trend-setting. I read all of these various missiles, letters, go back and forth, and there's some very broad statements in these letters, and there's some simple answers to some of the questions, and there's some not so simple answers. But this general throw the baby out with the bathwater approach, I mean, there's statements like the budget's been out of whack for 20 years. I don't think that answer can be answered in a day or 2. And I'll tell you something else. If it's out of whack, it's because in most cases, we don't have the funds. And I haven't been here 20 years. I've only been here 5. We didn't have the funds to do it. This is 2021. It's not 2009. It's not 2002. It's not 1989. I believe in past practice, but we've made, and we're going to continue to make in the next 8 weeks, 3 or 4 major decisions, which have will have a lot of effects on implementing this budget. And again, until the last day that you accept this budget, the changes could be made. I try to tell everyone that it's a working document. We'll take these questions into advisement and try to get back to everyone. But sometimes the devil's in the details, so to speak. And I didn't want to put the folks on from the Aggie School to answer questions that are asked all in one night. I mean, they're always at our meetings and we can speak to them all the time. I think that Dr. Quinn has done a fabulous job there. I think that Rick Fitzpatrick is a terrific county employee. And I feel somewhat that if they need defending, I'd like to do it. I know that some of it comes with the territory, but you know, let's all work together. And I'll be happy to bring in the Abrams group to speak, or other people to speak at any time you want. But we're going to have a new director probably the next, well, not before this budget's passed. He or she will have nothing to do with the crafting of this budget, but they're sort of going to help to implement it, as well as, I hope, implementing recommendations from the Abrams group. And that's all I have to say today. But
thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman Shea.
Chair.
Mr. Reardon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to my colleagues. First, I would like to extend to the parents who have spoken or are monitoring that I myself have a high school child, not at the Aggie, but I can empathize with your concerns. We all want to ensure that our children have the best possible education, and we want to support them and encourage them. And particularly with the Aggie, with such a specialized and unique opportunity for vocational training, we really can't find that anywhere else. So, you know, the parent from Framingham, I mean, what other communities have the jewel that we have in the Aggie? Now, that being said, to set the stage and set the table a little bit historically, we would like you to know, I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues, that we are absolutely doing things in a way that is different historically. Last year being the first year, the Finance Committee of the Advisory Board began to meet quite frequently. meeting after meeting after meeting, which was something a little bit different from how we had practiced before. And the reason is because of the issues that we encountered financially. And we want to hear more about those types of issues. Norfolk County is the county of presidents. It has a tremendous history and it provides a tremendous service. I'm from the town of Milton. We're a smaller town. We rely on the engineering department to help us. We have the Wollaston Recreational Facility that we share with the city of Quincy. There is just so much that the county has to offer. And with the help and input of citizens, of parents, we were able to make the Aggie and the entire county a better system of government for all of the residents and for the parents of students who may live outside of the county to make it better. But it is with collaboration, and we ask for your collaboration. To my colleague, Dr. Child's remarks, I would say that the Finance Committee, and I know Mr. Connors and Mr. Ryan has mentioned it as well, would like to invite you to a future advisory board and would like to invite you. I can consult with my other colleagues, but I think it would be fair to hear your concerns on the financial management of the county. That's what the Finance Committee does. In particular, the Aggie would welcome you to do so. There are a lot of changes occurring quite quickly with these positions, particularly the superintendent of the agricultural high school and with the county director. That will affect a lot of the trajectory moving forward. But if we don't start now, we won't be able to continue along. So the sooner we do, the better. And we will be posting meetings. All of the information, this began last year, about any of the deliberations that the advisory board has or the commissioners have, anything publicly of the county is on the website, on the homepage. All of that information is there. All of the postings with regard to meetings are public. They are sent out through each and city town hall, which is one city. And it's posted there. It's posted on the county. It's on the website. So all of our meetings are public. Anyone is welcome to join. It's really hard with Zoom. I'm not going to lie to you. Some of us forget to do things that we shouldn't be doing while we're on it. Occasionally we pick up a cup of coffee and spill it on the computer and it's a mess. We'd rather be all together in public where we can see each other and shake hands, but this is what we have right now. We welcome all of your thoughts and concerns. We want to help and work with you and make the county a great place to be. So with that, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to share that on behalf of the Finance Committee. I think we'd all be in agreement. And I think to your point, having people have a specific agenda item with regard to the Aggie would be great for a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redden. And while you're there, Mr. Redden, I would like to thank you and compliment you on the great job that the Finance Committee did this year. You alluded to the fact that things were done differently. Go ahead, Beth. It's there, Beth.
We can't thank you enough, Joe. Unbelievable. Great job.
The number of meetings were just unbelievable. We met with the county commissioners on a regular basis. And to Amy, thank you very much. Eric joining us late. And for Carl, Eric, Joe, Beth, thank you all very much. It was good teamwork. A lot of hours, a lot of time, and a lot of coffee spilled on the computer. You're right, Joe.
It happens.
That's why I'm doing Pellegrino water tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wondered if we could get maybe Michelle and or Bill to weigh in about timing of being able to actually do a deeper dive into the Aggie budget, maybe at the Finance Committee prior to a Norfolk prior to a full advisory board meeting. I'm just not sure about the timing here. That's one of my questions, really.
If I can, I think that I'm going to try to set something up. We had
Please.
talked about the 5th of the month, next month. Maybe a possibility we could do something there because we set that date aside, and I don't think we're going to need the time that we thought we were going to need after this hearing. So keep that open. That's probably the best possibility we have.
Okay.
I'll get together with Joe and Michelle and Joe Shea, and we'll put it together.
Sounds good.
Okay. Michelle, thank you. Bill Buckley, thank you. Commissioners, thank you. Everybody's done a great job. We can't go without saying thank you to Phil Iantosca. Phil, thanks for behind the scenes. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nobody else? I'm going to close the public hearing on the budget.
Motion to close the public hearing. Do we take a motion to open it?
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Phelan. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. The meeting's not over yet. The appointment of a nominating committee, according to the bylaws. As the chairman of the advisory board, I have appointed a nominating committee. It will be chaired by a gentleman from Quincy. Oh, God.
Charles Phelan.
Jack Phelan.
Yeah, Charles Phelan. Carl Baldoff from Plainville will be on there, and Mike Boynton from Medway will be on there. So it'll be Mr. Boynton, Mr. Phelan, and Mr. Baldoff, the nominating committee. They will bring back a slate at the May meeting for an election. Nominations will be also open from the floor at that time. Is there any other matters to come before the board that the chair did not have knowledge of? Anybody have anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Polito.
Just remind me, I would like to, a breakdown of the last year's leftover balance. Remember I brought up earlier, I haven't got a really detail of that. Could Michelle and Bill give what the money was left over last year and how much left in the bank or how left in the accounts? I haven't got a true answer on that one yet.
Certainly. I can get that breakdown for you, Tom.
I think for the whole committee.
Yes.
And the second thing is, could you, when you post the meetings for the commissioners, I know Bill has our email. Could you send an email out to all the advisory board in case they want to get on? The link is right there. You know, you're gonna post it anyway, so can you attach the thing to the advisory board and send it out?
I don't see why
wants to go on and look at it.
Through the weekly emails, Mr. Polito?
Yeah,
the
the one you post the meeting on. Yeah, the agenda.
Okay.
In case the commissioner wants to go on it. I mean, one of the advisory board members wants to go on the site.
That we're more than happy. I can send that out on a weekly basis.
Not to me, to everybody.
Yeah, to everyone.
Thank you.
Just fill in the notes that's where everyone's extra emails coming from.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody that has participated in the advisory board. I think everybody's done a terrific job. I think the hearing went well. And a reminder that on May 19th will be the budget vote itself. The Finance Committee will be meeting at least twice prior to that to make any adjustments in concert with the commissioners and Michelle and Bill. And I would remind everybody that we are going live on and there will be an option for people to Zoom in, but it will be live and it will be at the Aggie School. There is plenty of space there. We accomplished it during the height of the COVID pandemic. And I think we can do it one more time, but that's where the meeting is planned to be live at 6 o'clock at the agricultural school. Motion to adjourn.
So moved by Braintree.
Seconded by everyone.
Seconded from Mr. Beckerman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everybody play nice.